Hello and welcome back to another Let's Play Planet Zoo. My name is Chris, and this is episode 24 of Perseid Zoo. In this episode, we are building the Perseid Institute Science Center in the zoo. It's a little tiny science center. Tiny, I say tiny. It was like the biggest thing I've built so far, building-wise. So I'm going to rescind that comment. It's not tiny. We're building this fair-sized science center here inside the zoo. I was originally going to make this a couple different episodes, but this whole build was kind of me experimenting with different things. So rather than have a bunch of episodes where I then went through and undid whatever I just recorded in the next episode, we get one big crazy episode here. So hold on to your seats, kids, because we're going for a wild ride. this is a so yeah, 3 episodes crammed into one kind of thing. So anyway, what you're seeing here is the entrance to, or at least the first thing you're going to see when you walk into the entrance of the Science Center. It's our Galapagos Tortoise exhibit. We've placed down all of our North American animals, so now we are going to start placing down our South American ones, which will be the Galapagos Tortoise here, and then eventually another exhibit for the tapir. The tortoise exhibit, technically they don't like all this foliage, and some of this foliage is outside of their I don't know what you'd call it, their environment happiness there. They don't like the some of these plants I'm placing down, especially like the large lily pads. But how I figure it is the tortoise doesn't go into the water, he's not going to go swimming. And rather than fiddle with a bunch of old barrier habitat nonsense, I'm just going to pretend that the tortoise doesn't care. I mean, he can't get into the water. He's not going to get over to this other side over here where I'm placing down this foliage. He doesn't like all that foliage, obviously. He also doesn't like the lily pads that I put down in the water, but he's not going in the water. I mean, it's just how the game's mechanics work. Again, this is why I like sandboxes. I can then build this kind of fanciful exhibit here, which if I was playing franchise or career or whatever, the animal would hate it. And obviously I would not build this kind of exhibit in franchise or career, but in sandbox, you know, we can turn on maximize welfare and whatnot, so we can just say, pretend he can't see it, it's fine, you know. I mean, he's not gonna, there's no way that tortoise can get onto this side of the island, so, or this side of the exhibit, so why do I care? And he's also not gonna go swimming, so he's not gonna I mean, I don't think he's gonna care about the lily pad, honestly. Maybe he does. I don't know. I'm not a expert zookeeper, or even a zookeeper by any means. So, but anyway, I figure, you know, people will walk in here. They'll see this large artificial waterfall. They'll see the tortoises. Then there's going to be 2 kind of exhibit halls to the left and right, and then an exhibit hall up either of these ramps that you see now. So the top of the waterfall is going to be kind of like a cave area. It's going to have some information about rocks, about caves. There's going to be some geodes on display, you know, that sort of thing. And then when you first walk in, if you go to the right, there's going to be a bunch of small exhibit animals in there. And then if you go to the left, there's going to be this kind of cool lighting effect hallway that you can walk through. So that hallway almost melted my computer. So like I said, this whole thing was an experiment for me. You know, I'm just trying different things. I had several ideas that I wanted to implement in this science building, but I didn't have an overarching design, which is again why we are going straight into all these episodes are merged into one episode and not a couple different episodes, because like if I just, the Galapagos Tortoise exhibit stayed pretty much the same, but The other bits and pieces of this exhibit went through a number of iterations. So rather than devote an episode to that and then, you know, delete the or not really delete the footage, but you would have the next episode where you're going through and deleting what you just did in the last episode. That didn't make any sense to me. So we get one episode, and it's gonna be just a lot of things going on. So I'll do my best to narrate. So now we're gonna start work over here on our small animals exhibit. Now I had this idea. I wanted it to create like a dark room, someplace you walked in and it's really dark and the only thing illuminated is the animal exhibit. So you have like these big large like glass pillars of light coming down, and that would be the animal display, you know, something that you wouldn't find in another zoo anywhere. You know, it'd just be kind of like a inspiring moment, you know, like almost sci-fi like, kind of Blade Runner-esque, you know, lots of neon bright lights, or Tron-esque, you know, something that's different, that's very sci-fi like. So this is the first time experimenting here with it, is this little exhibit. So what I thought I was going to do is that we have these square lights, and I figured, you know, I'll just make a giant, you know, light square, you know, drop that in there, and oh my gosh, it's bright. Like, holy cow. I mean, the lights in this game add together, so if you have a bunch of lights all shiny in one spot, they all work, you know, additively, which makes sense. I mean, the same thing happens in real life to an extent. So yeah, we got rid of those lights and replaced it with just a New World Stadium light here, which gives a kind of a nice kind of cone light, or cone shape to the light, which I also really did like. And instead, we're going to grab a bunch of art pieces and create a kind of just white pillar that is reflective. Now, on the Bro Nation Discord, I got inspiration from a member on there called TR. Rose's Word, I think is what her full username is. Or I don't know if it's a her or he or whatnot, but so I should probably avoid gender pronouns. But anyway, they suggested that if you use the sign pieces as lighting, you can get kind of a nice neon tube. And the other thing I noticed with the sign pieces is they're not actually casting light. So you can place a whole bunch of them and it really doesn't affect performance. It also doesn't make the environment any brighter, which is nice. So since you're not casting that light, you're not really generating shadows. You're not straining the lighting engine. You're just kind of creating a glow, if that makes sense. So actually, almost by accident, discovered this little like diamond shape from the two information signs here, kind of clipping out, which I thought was really neat. So then went through and grabbed a couple of these guys, dragged them up, and then you get this kind of little light pillar on the art shapes here when you kind of just clip them through and then just rotate them all the way around, and you get this really kind of cool effect here with the light pieces. So with the sign pieces, it just kind of glowing and creating this kind of tube light in there. So I'm really pleased with how these turned out. We actually duplicate a whole bunch of them in here, and those become the kind of focal point of these exhibits. Getting the path in here, oh my gosh, that was a pain in the butt. I still don't think I have my path right. Everything's connected, but I don't think it's right, because these animals are still complaining about all sorts of stuff, you know, cleanliness and food and water, and I'm trying. I've got like a small army of zookeepers running around, so I'll probably have to build another zookeeper hut, because the only nearest one is back by the timber wolfing exhibit, and that's just a small zookeeper hut, which I think can only service one zookeeper at a time. So they're probably all having to run all the way back to like the welcome center, which is, I don't know, like 5 kilometers or something. I'm sure it's not that far, but you know, it's halfway across the zoo. This is all the way in one corner. So if you see this little, just kind of zoomed up there, there was like that little semicircle of exhibits. That was one of the original ideas that I was going for, and something that got cut was up in the top of the waterfall area where that cave is. There would be a whole bunch of animal exhibits kind of in a big semicircle, you know, traditional style exhibit. And I thought, that's boring. Let's do something crazy. So instead, we create these kind of sci-fi light pillars, which I'm really happy with how they turned out. Especially when I added this kind of wall lighting. I'm really like the lighting engine in this game is gorgeous. There's no denying that. So I'm really kind of pleased with what you can do with it. And it's actually got fairly decent performance. Well, I mean, I'll talk about it in a minute, but my kaleidoscope room, like it almost melted my computer. I'm pretty sure. So, but anyway, once we add these lights in here, it really kind of ties the whole exhibit together. You know, you've got these wall lights, and then you've got those kind of pillars of light shining everywhere. So now we're gonna show off working on the top of the waterfall just a little bit here. Added some foliage into the waterfall area. I dropped those black arc shapes in there just to kind of create like a false shadow, so that if you're looking at it, I mean, you'll probably never notice, especially since I started to heavily dump foliage on it. So it was probably a moot point to drop those dark arc shapes in there, but I figured it adds kind of a nice shadow, so that the thought behind it is, you know, that's where all the piping is. Obviously, this is a artificial waterfall, so that's where all the water would be coming out. That's where all your piping would be, all your machinery and everything, or your pumps rather, would be up there. So just by adding the dark shadow, I feel it lets you use your imagination a little bit. So yeah, just kind of adding the finishing touches to the scenery there. Now this is the part, not this part, because it actually didn't record. The recording didn't save while I was melting my computer, which I'm not surprised. But this is the second iteration of the kaleidoscope room here. So the first iteration had, I want to say, like 4 times as many lights as how many are there? 45? Actually, 10 times as many lights. There were, yeah, like 700 lights in here, all of like this rainbow color pointing at each other from different directions, and I actually still had okay frame rate. I think I was still getting, I think like 15 frames, so it was usable, you know. I average about like 60 frames on this game, even after like doing all this stuff. So like, 15 frames was definitely noticeable. Plus, I was getting all kinds of weird graphical glitches. Like, you would move and the camera would like pixelate, and all the lights would pixelate. Oh man, it was trippy. So I simplified the design a little bit. So the first design had like 4,000 parts, 700 of which were lights. It was insane. So then that left like 3,400 or so Christmas lights. But another thing I noticed about the Christmas lights, you know, similar to what the signposts do, is they're not actually emitting light. So they're not casting shadows. They actually have a very low polygon count, and, you know, being a 2D object, they have a very low polygon count. And they, the whole train wrecked, I don't know, but but anyway, the gist of it is that since they have a low polygon count and they have no actual true light emittance, you can dump a whole ton of them in here. So I actually doubled the count of the Christmas lights to make up for the horrible performance that I was getting from, again, 700 lights shining at each other. But same thing with these little trees. They're not actually emitting light. They don't cast a shadow. So they just glow, which then means you can dump a whole bunch of them and it doesn't hurt processing. At least not that I've noticed. So from my own experimentation, again, like this whole science center was me experimenting with the lighting engine mostly. The last thing I do here is add these Indian banners. I do want to touch on this real fast. So last thing I do in this kaleidoscope is add these little Indian banners. I color them all white so that they actually reflect the lights being shined from the ground. And it adds a little bit more depth, a little bit more texture to the hallway here that I really liked. So with the Christmas lights and the Indian awnings there and these little trees, you know, it's kind of got a fun vibe to it. So it's our Kaleidoscope hallway, or Kaleidoscope Kauseway, I think is what I called it. So now we're actually starting work on the facade here. Now the idea for the facade is that I wanted to have like a, I called it a glitched panel of wood, because to me it looks like a graphics glitch. You know, you're missing pixels kind of thing. My wife called it a rusty sheet of metal. So it's like, thanks, dear. That's not what I was going for, but no, now I see a rusty sheet of metal. Okay. But anyway, whether it's glitched wood or rusty sheet of metal, I think it looks pretty, and it's glitched wood and not rusty sheet of metal where you're going to get tetanus by looking at it. But anyway, so working on the facade here, the idea is I'd have this huge kind of, I believe they call them panorama windows when they're really big, really tall, floor to ceiling. And then it would be shaded by this glitch wood. And then on the either side, you know, to kind of contrast it, there's going to be kind of a darker, more metallic, just flat wall. So, I mean, it's not going to be completely flat, but it's going to be a wall that doesn't have windows, I should say. And it's just going to have kind of a texture and awning to it. So, anyway, just kind of saving time here by copying and pasting and rotating and all that good stuff. You know, little tricks to not spend, you know, all year working on one wall. I actually like how it looks from the inside looking out, because you get those nice kind of shadows. Adding kind of a railing there to the top, so it gives it a little bit of realism that, you know, this is actually held on by something and not just floating out there in space. So but anyway, adding the last little middle piece there, and then I'll have our little entrance, which I was originally going to go for kind of a wooden entrance, but then went with I believe it's the plaster pieces. I'm not sure if it was the plaster pieces or the limestone pieces. I'll know here in a second when I see them. Yeah, when I stepped back after putting it down as wood, it looked too flat. So, yeah, plaster pieces. So we put down the plaster pieces here, and just kind of adds a little bit more of a contrast with the white plaster. So, if you just saw that little thing floating around, that was a little art shape that I found, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so small and so cute. I think it was like called like croissant roll or something. It's like this itty bitty, or waffle. I think it's called waffle. This itty bitty little art piece that I mean, it's super tiny. I just wanted to look at it because I couldn't believe how tiny it was. Anyway, yeah, we're working on the entrance here. So with that white plaster, it definitely adds a little bit more contrast and a little bit more pop. And if you're wondering why I've got kind of those little things, those little nubs, you're going to see here in a second. So I wanted to... It actually kind of just happened out this way to add the sign to it as kind of a mounting point. So you see here, I'm adding Ricey's font. It's her Berlin font. Berlin Sans, I think is what it was, on the workshop. Which, I mean, look, fantastic once I put it up there. The problem is the LOD on it. As soon as I pull it away on my computer, it like disappears. So I was really disappointed. Because I mean, look at that. I mean, that looks really good. I mean, they did a wonderful job on that font. Really, all the the fonts they have out there are fantastic looking. Definitely way better than the... Yeah, you can see I switched over here because I pulled out and I was heartbroken. So instead we have to use the in-game font. But I also added Perseid Institute up at the top there. But yeah, alas, could not use the beautiful fonts that Ricey made. I'll use them other places. I was so excited because I finally had a place where I could use one of the fonts, but it actually looked really good and really sharp. And then I zoomed out and I was like, "It's gone! What happened?" But yeah, oh well. So yeah, we're working on the this is the left side of the building here. Working on the facade there. Like I said, it's going to be kind of a darker, more contrasty with the wood. So the wood's going to give off, you know, earthy tones, and then over here you've got more kind of industrial, dark tones. You know, with these, I wish we had thin metal pieces similar to the wood here. If we had a metal trim piece, oh, that'd be awesome. But the wood piece actually works pretty well. You know, you don't actually see a wood texture on the painted one, which is nice. Especially when you zoom out. So, I mean, it works. I would just like to have that little bit of shine, you know? But again, you're probably not going to notice it unless you're zoomed out or zoomed in, like, at this level. And for a building this size, you're not going to be zoomed in at this level very often. So, I mean, you don't really notice a whole lot of shine on the grills back there. But yeah, like I said, the painted piece works just fine. So I'm making kind of another little abstract looking shade thing here. This one's a little bit more uniform because I wanted the middle to feel one way and then the outer sides to feel another way. So I think rather than have a uniform straight up and down with pieces missing, have a uniform straight up and down with gaps. If that made sense. That didn't make sense at all. I'm just rethinking that in my head. But you guys can see on the screen what I'm going for. So contrast is all about contrast. Again, like the inside of this building is all about lights playing on in dark rooms and you know, creating contrast with light. So I wanted to kind of give a little bit of that. You know, like even like the first room you walk in, it's very traditional science center, you know, large indoor tropical garden kind of thing with, you walk up and you got your informational and here's your displays, and then you go into either one of the wings and it's completely different. You know, it's something that you otherwise really would not see, especially, or expect to see in a zoo, I should say. Or if you do expect to see this in your zoo, please let me know what that zoo is, because I need to visit it. Something like this would be awesome. I actually don't deviate a whole lot from the front facade, which was kind of nice. Like the whole interior of the building, I deviated several times. But for the outside, I kind of already had a idea of what I wanted, so it made it easy. which was nice. It was a nice refresher because, I mean, I don't want to say I struggled with the inside of the building because it wasn't really much of a struggle. It was more of, you know, like when you're experimenting, you do something and you think it's going to look good, and then you pull back and it doesn't really fit your expectations. That's kind of what the whole inside of the building was like for me. So it's build it out and it's like, not quite. Let's try something different, tweak it, move it, you know, all these little things. On the outside here, it came together like almost exactly kind of how I planned. So I didn't have a whole lot of deleting and removing and fiddling that well, if this series has a subtitle, you know, or a sub-name, I guess you could call it. Welcome to Perseid Zoo, the fiddling series. I'm your host, Chris. In this episode, we're gonna fiddle some more. I should just start adding fiddles to my soundtracks. Because really, I don't go into most of these things with any sort of plan. I just kind of, that's a pretty idea I found on the internet. I'm gonna try it. And then fiddle on it until it looks right. So
that obviously is extremely rare that it only shows up out of those few sequences, but it's still DNA based.
The other thing I learned from this building is groups. Groups are nice.
ready to throw out the
I probably didn't use them as much as I should have in this build. Actually, the next build, I do use them quite a bit, but that's because I decided to do something crazy. Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get there. It's actually not too crazy. It was challenging. It was the first time I was trying to do something I've not done before. So we'll say it's challenging. Yes. It was really hard to find actually a tree to fit in here. Now that I'm actually working on the foliage, I wanted to put these little manzanita trees in there just because I like manzanita trees. I think they're really cool and pretty. Then I was like, well, it'd probably make more sense to have like a bamboo or something that doesn't care that it's going to be mostly in shade and probably have wild temperature variations, because again, you got a whole lot of metal here and a black surface. So talk about that heat absorption, let me tell you. So tropicals it is. Because they're not going to mind. Actually, some tropicals are pretty sensitive to really hot temperatures. I guess if you keep the soil there wet, it's not going to really matter. So then I had the idea of creating this little reflecting pool all the way around. That was a challenge. Using the technique, I believe it was, I don't know if it was another person on the Bro Nation. I think it was Rubel, who had this technique of placing the water with the exhibit, and then you can lower down the exhibit barrier and have water kind of like right there. So I wanted to create like this little reflecting pool kind of thing, which used his technique to, at least to the best of my ability, get it to work. Again, it was kind of challenging because there's that path there, and then there's a little bit of like a terrain nub there. Which, in retrospect, I probably should have just deleted the little terrain, or deleted the path and then deleted the terrain nub. That probably would have saved me a lot of headache. It works. It works out in the end, and I'm pleased with the result. So that's all that matters, is that I'm happy, right? should all agree with me and then tell my wife that too. See, honey, the internet says that my happiness is the only thing that matters. That would go over well, I'm sure. So yeah, the front of the building's starting to take shape now. Another thing I realized without going into really any sort of overarching plan is that the right side of the building is larger than the left side of the building. So I drew this guy out and I'm like, oh yeah, just drop it. Oh, it's oh. Yeah, that's a different size and there's a path. I eventually put like a little like plaza courtyard thing out there. That works pretty well, but it was one of those, as soon as I saw it, I was like, crap, double crap. Especially when I started drawing out the little water feature here. It's like, this was a bad idea. Who thought of this? I should plan these builds out a little better, especially since I record them. This is where I say, or this is why I say I should have removed the little terrain nub there, because I think it was conflicting as I was dragging the fence down. I don't think the fence was tall enough. I think there's a minimum height to the fences, if I remember right. So I don't think the fence, because of that little terrain nub, was tall enough to bring down. So I brought down like most of the ones I could and just kind of left a little bit of fence that was sort of up. I mean, you can't notice it, but yeah, that's why we cut that whole section out there. But that was a lot of fiddling. Again, I guess the motto of the series is Fiddlin' Chris. So yeah, just kind of flipping that side over there to finish that off and dropping in some more of this solid platform all the way around. Eventually it'll extend all the way around the perimeter of the zoo. Not the water. The water's not. That was too much trouble to try to bring that all the way out. But anyway, now we're just adding the roof here. We're going to have a wooden roof on the inside mostly, with the exception of right over the tortoise exhibit, which will be a glass roof. Now the glass roof went through a couple iterations as well. The first being I was going to just kind of like a continual slope up, but didn't really have the corner pieces to do that. So instead, or at least didn't have the skill with corner pieces, maybe I should say. I'm sure there's someone out there who's been like, oh no, Chris, you could have just used this and it would have been no problem. But anyway, kind of change it up here. Again, I wanted it to all slope up so you could have a continuous slope to the top of the exhibit to kind of give you that like rising perspective. Before I did that, then I realized, you know, I should add a little bit of something here, like I don't know what you would call it, like a top wall texture. I don't know. Finally, did away with the modern glass pieces and went with the I believe it's the glass house set. Yeah, glass house set. So these glass opaque, completely shifting topics here. These glass opaque walls are actually really nice. I like them. They have a nice texture to them. So for making a little bit of detail up here on the top, you know, kind of a little, almost like a molding, but not really a molding. But it looks nice, is long story short. So put in the glass roof here eventually, or originally thought I was going to do kind of like a thing all the way around, and that really wasn't looking very good. So instead did this kind of 4 peaks here, these kind of like 4 pyramids, which I think looks kind of nice. then for the middle here, put in a large glass dome like that, which I think has a pretty cool texture when you're down below and you look up. Now just finally enclosing the entire entryway here, finishing off the walls on the inside here, so you get to your individual hallways. Originally thought I was going to put down some archway. Just figured I'd leave it as a big arch. You know, that looked good enough. At least it was, you know, the best. I just shouldn't say it looked good enough. I think it was like the best way to kind of fit in with this large grand theme that I've got going in here. If I have a theme, I don't know if I have a theme at all. But yeah, by this time I'm like running out of ideas. So it's like I need to do detail work in here to kind of like just finish it off. But have you ever done like these large scale buildings on the interiors? That I don't know about you guys, but for me, the last finishing parts, like you get the building 90% done, and then the last part seems to be the hardest. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Maybe you guys don't have that problem, but I think I'm getting better at it. Making little finishing touches here and there. So, you know, just making it so that it looks complete and not like, I don't know, the contractor quit, or you know, the zoo ran out of money. It went over budget. Oh yeah, I guess we could just take that molding out that you were going to install. No problem. Just leave that out. The other problem I had is I had so many things off grid. I'm kind of glad that they gave us a very finite grid option where we can go down to like that almost zero grid snapping, which is nice. Then just grabbing the entrance here, flipping it around so that you have, you know, people that aren't just teleporting in through a through a wooden wall here. Actually make it look like they're coming out of a door. Also wanted to put kind of an interior garden here. And this is where I dumped down a whole bunch of bamboo. I wanted to put bamboo in here somewhere. Yeah, I put the Bengal bamboo in here and just rotated it forward just a touch so that it wasn't clipping out through the window. And it adds a nice kind of lean to it as well, I think. Which also kind of fits with the design of this building, because most of the sun's going to be coming in through those skylights. So I feel like the bamboo, and I'm no expert on bamboo, but I know for like a tree, it would, you know, grow towards the light. So I imagine bamboo would do the same thing. Like it would lean out away from this window. I mean, there would be light coming in from the window, but the majority of light would be coming in from that sunlight above. So the thought is the bamboo would be leaning out that way. At least that's my theory. I'm sticking to it. So just really throwing a whole bunch of tropicals in here. Probably drop an ambient speaker in there too, you know, with some like jungle noises. Because why not? I like this crimson turkey bush. It works as a nice kind of like ground filler. You know, it's got a nice texture to it. It's got a nice little contrast, and it looks, when you sink it down there, really nice as a ground cover. I also had the idea of putting the bananas on the banana tree, make it look like, hey, look, there's bananas growing. That's cool. You know, like if I walked into a zoo, I would want to see. Well, I wouldn't want to see that. Sorry, let me put it this way. Let me get my words together, and then I'll explain. If I walked into a zoo and I saw that, I think that'd be really cool. It wouldn't be something necessarily I'm looking for, but I think it'd be something really neat. You know, a cool little feature if there's, you know, actual bananas on the banana tree. It would remind me of home in Florida. It'd be nice. So then the last little segment in here is in the cave area, adding a whole bunch of kind of crazy looking geodes using the ice pieces. This was also another idea from Tia R. She has, or I don't know if it's she or he, I keep using gender pronouns. I'm gonna get like slapped on the wrist or something. I just went through a whole bunch of like HR training on that sort of stuff, so I should put it in practice. But anyway, they have a museum. I think it's called like museum. Museum shelves or museum display. Anyways, on the workshop, and it had a large geode similar to that one that I have on the right there from the ice pieces. And kind of gave me the inspiration for this room to create a whole bunch of large geode displays. It's something that's kind of interesting, you know, to look at. And of course, the ice pieces glow quite beautifully when you put different colored lights on them. So that was a nice little added perk. But yeah, I created just a whole handful of them. I'm not going to show every single one of them being built because you'll get the idea, you know, and you'll see them in the cinematic. So yeah, there's just a whole bunch I dropped down in here. The other thing I want to point out is I'm not sure if I show it or not, because it was the last one I built. I'll show it in the cinematic. I'll make a point to show it. But the classic building set has a wall facade piece that is... it almost looks like a fossil. It's got a bunch of shells in it. I think if you just search shell, it will return the that wall piece, which has, you know, a bunch of like nautilus shells, which just reminded me of, you know, like a fossil, and I dropped one of those in here too. I like how a lot of these pieces are recolorable. Like the themed pieces are recolorable, so you can create this kind of display that I just did there for that rock using one piece rather than have to grab a whole bunch of things. So actually, I lied. This is the last thing I do. I actually decided to put in some backstage details. It's not something I normally do, but the roof looked really boring. So I had this little catwalk up here. Also had like a little maintenance looking shed on the roof here. An HVAC system. So yeah, my first little like backstage thing. Hooray! It's like I'm a real builder. I figured I'd give it a try. You know, what the heck. And also, it does add a nice touch. I see why people do it now. I always thought, like, you know, I'm not building super detailed or super realistic, so why do I need to make little backstage dealios? But again, this is probably not super realistic anyway. But it has a nice little touch. I definitely see the pros behind it now. So yeah, now we're gonna build our little. This would be like our stairway up. there'd be a little hidden stairway somewhere, and some secret passage that only the staff would know about to get up on top of the roof here. Because I figure they'd have to come up here to clean the glass on the exhibit every now and again, or on the building every now and again. So yeah, put a little way for them to get up here, and then drop a little hose, water access point up here. Then other things that you would need up here, like ladders and buckets and a little tool shed. Just little things. Added a little like key badge swipe. I don't know why you would need it up here on the roof. I figured you would probably need it on the other side. That would suck. You like get up here and you lose your key badge, or it stops working, and you're like, oh crap, I can't get down. I guess I have to use the hose to rappel. Go all die hard down the side of the building. Yeah, I took this little door and just kind of rotated it around a few times to make a little tool cabinet shed thing here. So yeah, that's the end of the video there. Like I said, it was a little bit chaotic, but yeah, we'll play out these cinematics, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.